What's going on, everybody? Respawn Gentleman here. First off, I want to say Happy New Year to everyone, and a special thanks to NoviX for the B-roll of this video. Now, on to voiceover Respawn.
Over the course of this year, Dying Light 2 has had a lot of ups and downs, which most people in the community would say that there's been more downs than ups. So this begs the question, can Dying Light 2 last in 2023 and beyond? I would say maybe, and here's why. So I do first need to point out that the game won't be a year old until February. Since the launch, we've had a lot of content. Techland has kept their promise of new chapters every 3 months since they were introduced, and we are due for Chapter 3 soon. However, it's the end of the year, so it kind of makes sense that they wouldn't release it right now, especially after just having 2 events. When you look at the first Dying Light at this point in its development, it wasn't much different. It became amazing after the following DLC. I'm holding out hope that Dying Light 2 can get better as well with DLC 2, but more on that in a bit. When the game released in February, lots of people flocked to it due to the enjoyment everyone had with the first game, but this was quickly changed as people started playing the game. It turned out to be a very buggy game and still an issue today. It was promised that there would be over 500 hours of content available in the game, and while this is technically true, you wouldn't see anywhere near that in your first playthrough. This is because so many things were locked behind your story choices. Several main and side quests would not appear based on your choices and would require you to start a brand new save in order to see more. This caused most people to only see about 50 hours of content with the choices they made on any given playthrough. While this is not inherently bad, there was no option for New Game Plus until almost 3 months after the game's release. This forced players to do multiple new saves to see everything. The problem with that is that no one really wanted to go back through the entire game again to see the other options, especially when they don't really make that much of a difference. Those who chose to stay on the same save, however, quickly found a major problem with the game. There was nothing to do once the game was completed. This, coupled with the tons of bugs that would prevent story progress and generally make the game very difficult to play, made the player base drop dramatically. Today, at the time of recording this video, the official Dying Light 2 Twitter released this statement you see on the screen. Many people have said this for a while, that they overestimate how many people are actually playing the game. Many have actually returned to Dying Light 1 instead. That being said, Techland has fixed a lot of those issues, but every time there is a fix, more things break. This cycle of broken, fixed, broken has continued all throughout the year, and if they want the game to be more playable, this cycle needs to stop. One thing that has been frustrating for some is the lack of attention on major issues, but more time spent on patching glitches that make people want to continue to play or return to the game. Glitches are always a huge topic in gaming, especially for online games. Sure, you should be able to do what you want with something you've purchased, but it's also the developer's job to make sure the game is stable, so it's understandable to correct those issues. It seems for the Dying Light 2 community specifically that these glitches were fun and sometimes hilarious. That's what gaming is about. To me, the game is fine without glitches, but it does give the player something interesting to try out. As you see from these Reddit posts, it's clear that people want to play the game but just can't, and it's an obvious issue that if you want to have something last for many years to come. Techland made a big promise with saying that they were going to provide 5+ years of content. Although that sounds good, there have been some issues with the content that's been released so far. Starting off with the initial roadmap that was released, we got the Authority and Ronin packs for free in the store. Originally, these were pure gear sets with terrible stats. Eventually, they were made into outfits, but the curious thing I never understood was breaking them into 3 downloads for each set. Next, we got more parkour challenges in the game, which the community was not happy about considering most of them completely skipped the challenges altogether. In April, we were promised a series of mutated infected events, and what we got was a mission that didn't add a lot to the game. I will say that the idea and execution of elemental goons was really good. However, saying it was going to be a series of events led people to believe that there was going to be more, but there wasn't. After that, we got more challenges that no one really asked for. The biggest hype was for the first DLC to be released in June, but as you may know, it was delayed about 3 different times before we finally got to play it. More on that later. At this point, New Game Plus was introduced, which came with some good things and some bad things. The good things were being able to play the game again with everything you collected and unlocked in your first playthrough, as well as make different choices. They also added 30 new inhibitors to the game to allow you to reach max level for both health and stamina. This is where the bad comes in. For starters, the decision to lock max health and stamina behind New Game Plus was not great. I've seen tons of comments from people over the year that would rather not have those maxed out because going through the game all over again did not seem appealing, since most people had already spent 50 plus hours getting to the end and didn't want to go through the whole thing again just for such a little reward. On top of this, they removed the PK crossbow, paraglider, grappling hook, UV light, and GRE detector from your inventory. This meant that you had to make sure 4 of the electrical stations or water towers were given to the PKs just so you could get access to the weapon again. Also, you had to progress halfway through the story just to get the paraglider and get almost all the way to the end just for the grappling hook. Now, let's talk about the events. They first started off with the booster events, which were designed to help people reach max level and didn't really offer any rewards. The main issue with this is that most players were already max level, so the events became pointless. On top of this, they weren't really that fun with the exception of the hyper mode event. This did not look good for the community events that were coming later. The first full community event introduces Chapter 1, which I will talk about later, and it was better than the booster event, but still not a super great event. This changed, though, with Bloody Summer. This event was a ton of fun that made ragdoll physics and enemy dismemberment what it should have always been, and a pretty decent weapon as a reward. Unfortunately, this did not continue. The following events were just rehashes of the booster events and gave terrible rewards that were completely useless. Even the new events that were not related to the boosters weren't enjoyable to play. When the Halloween event was released, it was finally fun to collect the treats and buy the potions. The issue with that event was that the holiday vendor Baka had to be ranked up to get masks that looked cool but also had terrible stats. The ranking up forced people to play co-op, which still had tons of issues that prevent people from connecting or making people fall through the map, among other things. The rest of the events were lacking any sort of inspiration and just felt lazy. This leads us to the current winter event. It was nice to see all the elf zombies, Grinch bolters, and snowman demolishers, but they all looked very out of place on the map. For people on PC, you could download a mod from Best Gamer Alley that adds snow textures on the entire map, which I'll have linked in the description below if you want that for yourself. The main issue with this is that the ability to have snow all over the map is literally in the game files, including textures for individual snowflakes. Why Techland decided not to include this is still a mystery. Another complaint about the winter event was that the goal was set to an unreachable number that is not possible with the current player base in the game. What makes this worse is that some of the rewards you can earn during the event can simply just be bought in the Nutcracker bundle instead. It's not the fact that it was $3, it's the principle behind it. The problem with this is that it feels like Techland has just given up on the events and would rather have people spend money than actually play the game. I really hope the future events do not include this, as the principle of it just makes it feel like they don't really care about the players. Moving on to the chapters, these were an attempt at adding more content for people that have finished the game and were looking for more things to do. Chapters brought in the bounty system that was fun at first, but after doing the bounties for a week or so, they got extremely repetitive and boring. The chapter missions were also fun to go through at first, but then became a tedious slog that gave very little rewards for the amount of effort the players would have to put in order to complete them. The chapters also have agents that you rank up to gain access to higher rewards. They decided to make the only source of XP for agent related to bounties, so it felt as though you were forced to go through the bounties to reach a high enough rank to buy all the items. On top of this, they added 2 new currencies to the game: agent-specific tokens and mutation samples. The samples are easy to come by and can be used to buy things from the agents, but have to be coupled with the tokens. The only way to get tokens was to rank up the agent or complete the elite version of the chapter missions over and over again. This made everything feel like they were just giving the players busy work rather than actually providing in-game content that keeps people wanting to play the game. Chapter 3 has not been released at the time of recording this video, but Techland really needs to make some drastic changes to the chapter system for them to be enjoyable. Another thing the chapters did was bring in new enemy variants. The bad thing about the variants is that they are literally just reskinned versions of the same infected we've been fighting the entire time. Chapter 1 gave us volatile tyrants, which are just slightly bigger and red. Chapter 2 gave us hags, which were banshees that could be out during the day, and green. I really hope that this changes in Chapter 3 and we get a functionally different enemy variant than just a reskin. Now, as I mentioned before, the Bloody Ties DLC was delayed 3 times before it was released. This was expected to be a good thing that would allow them to really polish it and make it shine. However, what we got was not polished at all. Now, there are not many bugs in the DLC itself once it gets going, but that is the biggest issue. A lot of people still can't access the DLC even after purchasing it. There was a lot of excitement for the DLC, as you can see in these screenshots from these polls, but that excitement was quickly lost. Not everyone disliked the DLC, me included, but it's safe to say that there has been a large amount of disappointment with it. Now, yes, I am aware that there was a PC patch that should have fixed the DLC access issues, as well as a console patch that is coming in January, but this shouldn't be needed. Lots of people either bought the deluxe or ultimate editions of the game or just bought the DLC when it was released. Now those same people will have to wait 2+ months before they can actually access the content they paid for. This is a massive issue that should have been ironed out long before the DLC was released, especially given the delays. I hope that DLC 2 does not suffer the same fate, but more on that in a little bit. Bloody Ties is an arena DLC that nobody really wanted. Sure, it's only $10 and you can definitely get some enjoyment out of it, but the structure of the whole thing is bad. To go a little bit into the story, you get a radio message from a stranger needing your help. This leads you to meeting Chiro, who steals your wallet immediately, and then you basically become super best friends after spending a grand total of really a few minutes together. The problem is that Aiden is portrayed to have a one-track mind during the main story, and every single thing he does is to further the goal of him finding his sister. The fact that the DLC takes place during the main story, it feels strange that Aiden would risk his life for fame and glory and his new best friend and not talk about Mia one time. This made the story feel so disconnected from the main game that it just made no sense. Not that the main story makes sense, but that's a whole other discussion. In the DLC, you gain access to an arena that lets you complete timed challenges to earn fame and rise ranks. Although I do enjoy these timed events, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people in the Dying Light community did not like the regular time challenges. This turned a lot of people away from the DLC. Another aspect that would have been awesome, but turned out to be nothing, was the human fights. Now, sure, there are a couple of times where it's just you in a room full of other humans and you have to defeat them all and come out on top. This was some of the most fun in the DLC, but it was related to about 3 story-related incidents and nothing that could be repeated. Bloody Ties really needs to have a horde mode or human battle arenas to really improve on wanting to keep playing it. As it stands now, once you go through the story, which can't be repeated unless you go through New Game Plus, and you complete the challenges a few times, it gets really boring. The new area to explore is super small, and there's not really much to explore. On top of that, you have to load into this area instead of it being part of the main map. I can understand that from a stability standpoint, but at the same time, it just makes it feel even more disconnected from the main game. This brings us to DLC 2. Best Game Rally put out a video I will have linked in the description if you want to check it out, talking about this DLC called Blood Diamonds, which that title alone could be problematic if you're aware of conflict diamonds. I don't think that will bring controversy, but it is worth mentioning. At this point, we don't know what's set in stone and could change, including the name. Basically, it's been data mined and leaked by reliable sources that the second DLC will not, in fact, take place after the end of the story. This is extremely disappointing because everyone has been wanting to know what happened to Aiden after the events of the main game, but it still seems like we won't know that for quite some time. The story of DLC 2 seems to be the same as Bloody Ties in the sense that it has zero connection to the main story and makes no sense as to why Aiden would stop his quest to find his sister just to get rich. I do like the idea that the majority of the map will be underwater, and I feel that could bring some interesting challenges, especially with the new stalker enemy that will be in the game for the DLC. It has the potential to be really good, but also really bad, and if Techland does not completely knock it out of the park, then Dying Light 2 may fully die off in 2023. Yesterday, at time of recording this video, Techland put out a video for the end of the year talking about what is to come. Timon confirmed that they will be making nights more terrifying since right now they're definitely not. He said that more volatiles are coming, so that could mean something like nighttime from Dying Light 1, which would be great, but we don't know what that's going to look like right now. He also mentioned that they are adding new weapon types to the game, which is good since there are not many right now. We'll have more information on all upcoming changes on the anniversary of the game's release in February. Despite everything I've said in this video, I do still really enjoy the game and hope it can flourish as well as the first one did. Sadly, however, unless some major changes are made, Dying Light 2 may never reach the heights of its predecessor and could get left behind before we get the 5+ years of content that we talked about. I want to hear your thoughts on this as well, so leave a comment below if you feel the game will be able to last in 2023 or if it will fail instead. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Have a happy new year, thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.